Alrighty, so yeah, it's finally over between the US versus Canada in the Gold Cup quarterfinal. Not gonna lie, this was a very long game, even for a game that went the full distance in this one. I mean, this game started at 8 o'clock, even though technically it should have started at 7:30, but because of CONCACAF and because this game is on FS1, you know it's gonna be delayed, and it didn't end until 11 o'clock local time and 8 o'clock my time. And because it went a little bit long, I'm actually thinking about doing the review of those Saturday game in MLS tomorrow, and I'll just kind of do a full review because by the time I finish reviewing this game, it will be around like 9 o'clock, and that yeah, I'm basically gonna have to go to bed because I gotta go to work early tomorrow at 6 in the morning. But anyhow, in terms of this game, well, yeah, the U.S. this was not pretty by any means necessary, but they still were able to move on by the skin of their teeth and by a PK shootout. Though full credit has to be with Canada. I know the Canadian fans are going to be a little bit heartbreak seeing this game and just a latest disappointment that this Canada team has suffered throughout the past 10 or 20 years or so. But they fought hard in this one, and I thought they stole it in this one when they took the lead in extra time. But yeah, the U.S. found a way to tie in extra time heading into the PK shootout. And when you have Matt Turner in goal, you know that you have a shot in terms of winning a PK shootout. And I also would like to thank Dane Sinclair for not having his revenge moment. I mean, I know last time Dane Sinclair was in a PK shootout, it was not a great moment for me as a Minnesota United fan with them losing to FC Dallas in that shootout, and I was really hoping, Dane, please do not have your revenge game in this game against the U.S. But early on, going all the way back in the first half, so just 1 minute into the game, the linesman actually went down after he took a ball in the face by Miller, who was trying to clear the ball. Now, I mean, that is just kind of sets a tone of how this game is going to be long, and there's going to be some strange thing because it's not a CONCACAF game and it's not a Gold Cup game without some weird things that you never usually see on a soccer pitch that happen. And here, yeah, just very unfortunate here. The linesman actually eventually had to well, I wouldn't say he got subbed out. I mean, you could say he got subbed down this game. And they also mentioned the guy that actually was the linesman for the previous game between Guatemala and Jamaica, because it was another game as part of the doubleheader in this one. He actually had to come in as a replacement. I gotta give full props for him too, because it's one thing to be the linesman for a 90 minutes game, but to do it and do it 120 minutes and to do it for 210 minutes in these two games, gonna give a full prop to that linesman. I mean, that is, he definitely deserve a pay and even more in terms of what he got doing those two game and basically in an emergency role. But yeah, that was very unfortunate. In fact, it was a very long delay. Like it was about 7.5 minutes when the game before resumed, and players were actually kicking the ball. I mean, the Canadians player, they were still trying to warm up because again, this happened in the first minute of the game. This doesn't has got to really sucks for all those players that are just so hyped up for this game, and then we have this long stoppage play because of this freak incident. But nevertheless, by the time the game resumed, not much really has happened since the restart because both of these teams, they like to feel each other out. The first shot of the game did see Busio pulls it wide from long range, as the shots were only one apiece throughout the first 25 minutes. I mean, again, it was very choppy in the beginning, and a lot of that also has to do with the creativity for the U.S. It was not existent in the first 30 or even in the first half of this game. There was no creativity whatsoever. The passing was bad, especially when it gets to the final third. And this, of course, despite the fact that they had majority of the possession, which I thought that kind of played right in the hand of Canada, because you knew that coming into this game, the Canadians were going to do what John Herman always do. Teams that want to hit the U.S. on the transition because they do have the players to do so, and they're just going to sit back and try to be organized, which I thought they were in this one. Now, in the 43rd minute, Cavallini, he actually only got a yellow card after just an ugly challenge on James Sands. And I'm not gonna lie, if Lucas Cavallini was still with the Vancouver Whitecaps and he do that same challenge to James Sands if the Whitecaps were playing against NYCFC a couple years ago, I think that could have been a red card. I mean, that was a very ugly challenge. It was a studs up challenge, but because this is CONCACAF and this is the Gold Cup, you only get a yellow on that. I mean, I would say that was kind of borderline even for CONCACAF standards, but again, yellow card was the right call. I mean, I know U.S. fans would want a red on that, but I mean, I can understand why it's yellow because of the CONCACAF level, and also you don't want to have a red card that potentially ruin of what turns out to be a really good game. And then in the third minute stoppage time, Reynolds actually almost scored an own goal there. I mean, this ball was delivered into a dangerous area, and this is kind of the worst nightmare if you're a center back when you're trying to put it away and you're basically facing in front of your goal. And here, Ryan Reynolds, he was very fortunate that that one goes over the bar because I've seen it so many times when those dangerous ball comes in, defense try to pull it out, but instead they just put it into their own net. And again, Brian Reynolds almost did it there. And I thought also that probably shouldn't have happened if the U.S. and Jalen Neal didn't just turn the ball over. I mean, or actually, he didn't turn the ball over, but he actually let the transition happen. I mean, he was trying to broke the play and just completely misplayed it, and Canada was on the transition. And when Canada is on the transition, that is going to be trouble for this U.S. team. And again, they got away with one there. And speaking of getting away, they also got away with a bit of a controversial call. So again, it's not a Gold Cup without some controversy call, and there was in this one where there was no penalty given to Canada after VAR deemed that Bombedo actually pushed Buzio before Robinson handball in the box. Now, originally, when we look on the replay of that, I thought Miles Robinson in the U.S. was in trouble because with the way that ball hit his hand and his hand was outstretched like that, that's definitely a penalty. Now, fortunately, before that play, it looks like Bombedo did push Buzio, and I'm not gonna lie, there wasn't really too much contact in terms of. I guess maybe it's enough for VAR to overturn that, but yeah, if it wasn't for that, that's a penalty for Canada. And I know the Canadian fans and the players were not happy about that, but if they look back at that, yeah, maybe they could kind of agree. Though again, they'll argue that the Bombedo foul on Buzio definitely didn't look like it was too egregious for them to overturn. But nevertheless, it was overturned, and again, the U.S. once again got left off the hook there. But in the 10 minute of stoppage time, because remember we had a long delay, so there was 10 minutes of stoppage and even more because of the VAR review. Fiera would hit one right to Dane Sinclair, and that was the first shot of the game, or the first shot on goal of the game. There was actually I think 3 shots up to that point. It was a quiet night for Jesus Ferreira. He was definitely not having the same impact and wasn't scoring hat trick like he did in the previous 2 games. But as the whistle was blown, there was some temper split between both of these teams. So again, this is the thing about these two teams facing off each other recently, and that I feel like they're starting to be becoming a bit of a rivalry. I mean, I know whenever we talk about U.S. versus Canada, it's more associated with hockey, but I think in soccer we start to see that, especially with the way that Canada has started to get better and the way that both of these teams have played each other a lot more recently than we've seen before. Yeah, you're going to have some tempers flare, and you're going to have some chirping that was going on. And again, there was definitely a lot of chirping. In fact, as they were walking down the tunnel, there was still more chirping that was going on. But we do head to halftime with this game scoreless. And in the second half, I thought the U.S. was on the front foot, but once again, they just looked lackluster going for it. Like there was just really no rhythm going for it on the attack. And this just kind of gets to me a point where I'm thinking, BJ Canada's got to change this up. I think he's going to have to make some substitution. In fact, Stu Holding even mentioned it a couple of times where this team needs a substitution because whatever they're doing on the attacking end, it's just not working right now. Busio then had a free kick that was actually blocked off the wall and goes wide in the 59th minute. The We Won Vasquez chant erupted in the Bailey and from the Cincinnati faithful because, as a reminder, this game was taking place at TKO Stadium, and that those fans in the Bailey is going to chant Brandon Vasquez and maybe in some way Matt Miazga's name too, because those are the two hometown hero, and of course Brandon Vasquez eventually did came on into this one. The shots were 6-1 in favor of the U.S., but only 2 of them was actually on goal. One of them did get on goal in the 69th minute as Dane Sinclair would deny Busio from close range. Again, coming into this game, I also kind of had a bit of a conflicted feeling knowing that Dane Sinclair is in goal, and that the reason why I have a conflicted feeling is that I want Dane Sinclair to do well. I don't want him to really just just play badly in this one because if he play badly in this one and he comes back to the Loons, I mean that's not really a good way for him to come back to his club level, and especially of him being the number one choice for the Loons in this one. So I'm actually glad the fact that he actually had a good game in this one. In fact, he actually made a couple of big saves in this one too. And then Cal went beast mode there, but he missed wide from long range in the 70th minute. It was another great game from K Cal. Always great to see as a Quakes fan too. But there was then standing ovation as Vasquez and Miazga was finally summoned into this game. Of course, the FC Cincinnati fans that was in attendance. Then they definitely was happy that eventually both of those players came on. And on the first opportunity that Vasquez had, he pulls it wide on the volley. But then in the 88th minute, and at this point, I thought this was just kind of written in the starts. I mean, you knew that Brendan Vasquez playing in his home stadium, you knew that he was going to eventually score the winner. And here at that point, we thought that this was the winner as he scored here from DeJuan Jones to give the U.S. a 1-0 lead. Great finish there from Vasquez, but even a better delivery from DeJuan Jones. I mean, I think as good as a finish that Vasquez had. Oh, this was just a great ball from DeJuan Jones, who really did a really good job in this game in terms of delivering those crosses in this one. But like I said, we thought that that was kind of the winner. We thought that was kind of the storyline that it's almost like it's written in the script that Vasquez was going to score the winner to propel the U.S. In front of the in front of the U.S. fans and even some of the FC Cincinnati fans in the stands. But then in the 90th minute, this is when we had a bit of a twist in the tail of this game as a penalty was given to Canada after VAR deemed Robinson handballed this one. So yeah, this is the second time tonight that Robinson looked like he committed a handball there, but this time he didn't get away with it. And again, it was a little bit unfortunate of how this time it went because he was kind of walking through and the ball just kind of hit his hands there. But unfortunately, his hands was outstretched, and when if you hit the ball hits your hand, even if it's accidental, when your hands is outstretched, that's obviously going to be a penalty. So yeah, Canada was given the penalty, and Stephen Victoria steps up to take this penalty, and he buries it. So that ties the game up at one apiece, and you can just hear a pin drop inside TKO Stadium. Like like that crowd that was just erupted after Vasquez got that goal. It basically went completely silent after that goal went in. Though Vasquez did try to win it late, but he heads it right to Dane Sinclair, and we do head to extra time in this one. By the way, I actually didn't know that this one was going to go to extra time. I thought it was just going to go straight to PKs, which is why, again, this is why maybe I'm going to have to do the review for these Saturday game tomorrow because I knew this game was going to run late. Like it was already started to run late by the time we get to extra time. But we go to extra time, and in the first half of extra time, Jason Russell Rowe, he blasted high despite being wide open in the box. And yeah, that's one that Russell Rowe will not tap back. I mean, the Columbus man, that's got to be buried from him with that much space that he was given. Though on the other end, Miazga would hits it straight to Dane Sinclair from the corner. As I thought the U.S. started to take control of this game, they started to have the possession, started to create those chances, and Canada was elected to once again go on the transition, sit back, and also more likely to try to pick this to PK. Because I think as the game goes along, you can see the fatigue is starting to show on this Canadian backline. Like they've been defending very well throughout the game, but when you're defending for so long, like what we've seen in this one, fatigue was really starting to catch up to this Canadian team. Cal then had a shot that was deflected. Why? As I thought the game started to open up, and then Dane Sinclair he absolutely robbed Miazga on the header there. I mean that was a point blank header. Some cat-like reflexes that I've seen from Dane Sinclair. Always he makes a big save here to keep this one at 1-1, and we head to halftime. Would this game still stay at 1-1 in extra time? In the second half of extra time, Dane Sinclair would deny Busio from close range. That at time turns out to be a big save because just 2 minutes later, Canada would take the lead. It's Jacob Schaffelberg, the Nashville man, scoring here to give Canada a 2-1 lead, and that came off of the transitional play. And that's what I thought was what I fear about the U.S. Because as much as the U.S. was pushing man forward and trying to get that second goal and try to retake the lead in extra time, I was very concerned with the way that if Canada can go on the transition and they play a perfect ball to set up a transition, the U.S. is going to be in trouble. Guess what happened in this one? Yeah, the Canada does a good job in terms of setting up the transition. The U.S. just got completely caught there on the transition. And yeah, Canada was leading in this one. And again, you can hear a pin drop at TKO Stadium. Like this looked like it could be a reality that the U.S. could actually get knocked out in the Gold Cup for the first time I think since 2000. I mean, I know for every Gold Cup for the last couple of edition, or not even the last couple edition, maybe even the last 7 or 8 edition, they've always made it as far as the semifinal and the final. But it looks like the Shark was on hand in this one. And then Busio looked to respond, but he heads it onto the roof of the net in the 112th minute. But then in the 114th minute, the U.S. ties it up again. And unfortunately, this is Scott Kennedy that scores the own goal. And again, Dane Sinclair, he made a great save here on Busio, but just an unfortunate bounce off of his own defender and into the back of net. So yeah, very fortuitously, um, moment there for the U.S. And again, as I mentioned, with the way that the U.S. Really got by, yeah, by the skin of their teeth. There was a lot of luck involved in this one too, and again, that was kind of fortunate for the U.S. But nevertheless, the game was tied up at two apiece, and I mean, wrote CONCACAF After Dark is truly alive because by then, when we get extra time, it was already past 10 o'clock, and when when we get deeper into the night, there's gonna be some After Dark kind of moment, some peak CONCACAF moment that we're going to see, and we definitely saw more of that later in this one. Though in the 117th minute, we almost saw another MLS, or not MLS, but CONCACAF After Dark moment as Witherspoon almost scored an own goal here. He was trying to defend this corner, and again, if you're a defender, your worst nightmare is when you have to be facing your head in front of your goal, and that's kind of what happened in this one with Witherspoon. But he puts that one over, and it's another corner for the U.S. They were piling the pressure. Like it just feels like they were still playing down a goal. They were pushing to trying to get this to win it before we go to PK shootout, and there was no doubt Canada was just playing for PKs. Like they were just hanging on for dear life. Those tired legs has got to be feeling even more tired as the minutes count down. And then there was also or actually that in the end the Canada did of course get this into a PK shootout. But as we get to the PK shootout, again, CONCACAF After Dark moment happened again because when they take the coin toss, there was actually a dispute that was going on, and I believe John Strong mentioned there was some kind of choice words that was shared between Matt Turner and one of the Canadian players. I think it was Stephen Victoria, in terms of the fact that they were not happy of how the coin toss was conducted. Now, they didn't show how the coin toss was conducted on live, but yeah, I guess I don't know if this is just gamesmanship that is shown by both teams, just kind of in this very tense kind of game where maybe the tempers kind of got the best out of both of these teams, and we kind of saw it at some point in this one. But yeah, that was kind of interesting to see. And what's even more interesting to see is that actually Canada was actually going to take the penalty first. And I actually thought that was going to be a disadvantage for Canada, and especially for Stephen Victoria, that was going to take the penalty kick first because they just keep delaying it. Like they just keep delaying it. Nobody, like both teams were basically lining up, but they weren't lining up in a correct position where they're ready to take the penalty. And it's almost like kind of like a Mexican stand off until who actually eventually does step back in their line and takes this penalty. Either way, I mean, just peak CONCACAF moment. But again, that really was a big disadvantage for Canada because again, the longer this takes for them to take their first penalty, the more that it could be a disadvantage for the penalty kick taker to think about it. And in some way it kind of worked out because on the first penalty, in fact the first free penalty was actually missed. The first penalty, Turner and Victoria, again, they already shared choice words. They were still chirping at each other as the penalty was taken. And yeah, Turner basically won the mind game because Stephen Victoria trying to go down the middle. He went down the middle in that penalty kick in stoppage time in second half. Well, he decided to do it again, but Turner was having none of it. I mean, he just made that say there as Victoria trying to go down the middle. He didn't even Turner didn't even have to move to guess that. But again, Vasquez had a chance to give the U.S. the lead, but he blasted that one into Kentucky. And then again, the third penalty was, of course, was also safe. Canada actually did put a couple of players that was very inexperienced to take the penalty, and I kind of question some of the penalty kick selection. I mean, I know John Herman don't have a lot of option, but yeah, putting Liam Frazier as your second penalty kick taker, a guy that has never taken a penalty kick before, when I heard that from John Strong, I knew Liam Frazier was gonna miss that because again, it's not just Matt Turner being a good PK stopper, but in that moment like that, and you get a chance, you have to take your first penalty. It was gonna be just maybe too much for the young Canadian to do so, and indeed it was, but eventually there was actually a fourth straight penalty that was made, and the deciding penalty was Brim striking the post on the final round of PK. And again, this is another guy that don't have a lot of experience in terms of taking penalty. In fact, he actually taken one penalty in MLS Next Pro, as John Schwal mentioned, and he missed that one, and make it 0 for 2 now in his career in terms of taking the penalty. As yeah, in the end, the U.S. they move on by the skin of their teeth, 3-2. Now, of course, the stats doesn't really tell us the story. The stats kind of heavily in favor of the U.S. 21 shots compared to 5 that Canada has. 2 shots on goal compared to 8 that the U.S. had. 4 shots off target compared to 1 that Canada has. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 9 that the U.S. had. And possession-wise, 68% possession compared to 32% possession that Canada has in this one. But, when you just look at how this game, of course, turns out, again, I think the U.S. are pretty fortunate that they're moving on into the next round, and they're definitely going to have to play better in the next game against Panama, because Panama is not going to be a walk in the cake. I mean, Panama has gone really good so far during this Gold Cup, but that's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But for Canada, again, no, there should be no shame in terms of this game. I mean, again, they almost got their revenge against the U.S. in the Nations League. And this one, they definitely showed up much better compared to what we saw in the Nations League final, where they pretty much didn't show up in that game whatsoever. But yeah, in the end, unfortunately, still on the losing end, and now their focus is going to definitely be on the Nations League again, because again, as we mentioned, as much as this Gold Cup, we're into it, and everybody are kind of into to this tournament. At the end of the day, I still think what's going to be important for a lot of these big teams in the CONCACAF region, teams like the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, they're definitely be solely focusing on the Nations League, because those are the games that's going to be act as a qualifier for an even bigger tournament that's going to be happening next year in the U.S. That is Copa America in 2024. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of this game. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this game. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.